The message arrived without ceremony, slipping into every channel, every screen, every mind capable of receiving it. No translation lag, no distortion. Just a cold, unified declaration that echoed across Earth like a death sentence waiting to be signed. The Galactic Council had spoken. For centuries, humanity had been watched, catalogued as a volatile species, unpredictable, stubborn, and dangerously resilient. They had been tolerated, studied from afar like a storm too chaotic to approach, but now that tolerance had run out. "You will submit to Council authority," the message declared, its tone devoid of emotion. "Disarm all military assets. Surrender interstellar autonomy. Compliance ensures survival. Resistance ensures extinction." Panic didn't erupt. Not the kind the Council expected. There were no mass riots, no cities burning under fear. Instead, something far quieter spread across the planet. A stillness. A tightening. Humanity listened. Governments convened in emergency sessions, alliances reactivated, old rivalries buried beneath a shared understanding. The threat wasn't just against a nation, it was against Earth itself. Orbit filled with unfamiliar silhouettes, Council warships, sleek, immense, and impossibly advanced, hung above the planet like silent judges, their presence alone bent the atmosphere, casting shadows that swallowed continents in unease. They didn't fire. They didn't need to. The message had already been delivered. Days passed. The Council waited for surrender. What they didn't understand was that humanity didn't rush decisions when survival was on the line. Humanity observed, calculated, remembered. They remembered every war fought, every loss endured, every impossible victory clawed from the edge of annihilation. They remembered what it meant to be told they had no chance, and they remembered what came next. Deep beneath oceans, within mountains, hidden in deserts, and orbiting silently beyond the visible spectrum, systems awakened. Old ones, forbidden ones, the kind humanity never spoke about, even among themselves. The Council detected energy spikes, subtle at first, then growing. Their sensors struggled to categorize what they were seeing because it didn't match any known technology. It wasn't supposed to. On Earth, the final decision was made not with speeches or votes broadcast to the public, but in a sealed chamber where silence carried more weight than words. Leaders looked at one another, understanding passing between them without explanation. There would be no surrender. The response was prepared. The Council received it instantly, not a fleet mobilization, not a declaration of war, not even a negotiation request, just 2 words: try us. Confusion rippled through the Council ranks. It wasn't defiance as they understood it. It wasn't fear masked as bravado. It was something else. Something unsettlingly calm. They issued a final warning. Non-compliance confirmed. Enforcement will begin. The warships moved. And then, Earth moved first. Space itself seemed to fracture as human defenses activated. Not weapons in the conventional sense, but distortions, gravitational anomalies, localized folds in reality, energy signatures that shouldn't exist within known physics. The first Council ship vanished without explosion, without debris. One moment it was there. The next, it wasn't. Gone. The Council hesitated. That was their first mistake. Humanity didn't wait. From orbit, from hidden platforms, from places the Council had never detected, humanity unleashed something far worse than brute force. Precision, adaptation, unpredictability. Every time the Council adjusted, humanity was already ahead. Ships were disabled mid-command, systems overwritten by algorithms that evolved faster than they could counter. Entire formations collapsed into disarray as their coordination dissolved under attacks they couldn't trace. It wasn't just warfare. It was dominance. The Council's superiority, centuries in the making, meant nothing against a species that had spent its entire existence surviving against impossible odds. They had expected fear. What they got was resistance sharpened by history. Within hours, The orbit they had controlled became a battlefield they could not understand. Within days, it became a graveyard. Retreat orders were issued, but even that didn't come easily. Humanity let some ships go. That was intentional, because the message wasn't just meant for the Council fleet above Earth. It was meant for the entire galaxy. When the surviving ships returned, damaged and shaken, they carried more than scars. They carried a realization. Humanity had never been weak. They had been patient. Back on Earth, the skies cleared. The shadows vanished. Life resumed, not as it had been, but with a new awareness. Humanity had been tested, and the result had echoed across the stars. The Council did not send another threat, not immediately, because somewhere, in the quiet aftermath of their failure, they understood something fundamental had changed. Earth was no longer a species to be managed. It was a force to be respected. And those two words, simple, defiant, and absolute, continued to echo far beyond their origin. Try us. The silence that followed the Council's retreat was not empty. It was watchful. Across deep space, hidden observers, minor empires, and ancient civilizations replayed the battle data in disbelief. What they saw didn't align with their understanding of power. Humanity hadn't just defended itself. It had rewritten the rules of engagement. Signals began to spread through the galactic networks, fragmented at first, then forming a clear narrative. Earth had stood alone against the Council, and, won, not through overwhelming numbers but through something far more dangerous. Ingenuity without limits. Within the Council itself, fractures emerged. Some factions demanded immediate retaliation, convinced that overwhelming force could still crush humanity. Others, quieter and far older, urged restraint. They had seen species like this before, rare, defiant, impossible to fully conquer without catastrophic cost. On Earth, there was no celebration broadcast to the stars, no grand victory speeches sent across the galaxy. Instead, humanity did what it had always done after surviving the impossible. It prepared. Because the threat wasn't gone. It had only changed shape. Deep in classified facilities, scientists and strategists analyzed every second of the encounter. Not to admire it, but to improve it. The systems that had shocked the Council were already being upgraded, refined into something even more precise, more controlled, more devastating if needed. Humanity didn't believe in final victories, only in temporary advantages. In orbit, new structures began to take form, vast constructs that shimmered at the edge of detection, partially existing outside conventional space. They weren't weapons in the traditional sense, but something far more unsettling. Infrastructure for a kind of warfare the galaxy had never seen, and humanity was building it quietly. Meanwhile, the surviving Council ships delivered their reports. Not just tactical data, but something harder to quantify. Fear, not the instinctive panic of defeat, but a calculated understanding that they had misjudged Earth completely. They hadn't threatened a lesser species. They had provoked a sleeping one. In distant systems, smaller civilizations took note. Some saw hope in humanity's defiance. Others saw a new apex predator emerging on the galactic stage. Diplomatic channels, once silent, began to open, cautious messages reaching toward Earth, testing the waters of alliance. Humanity responded carefully, not with dominance, but with clarity. They were not seeking war, but they would never accept chains. And far beyond the known borders of the Council, something else was listening, something older, something that had watched countless empires rise and fall. For the first time in a long while, its attention shifted, drawn toward a small, blue planet that had just told the galaxy two simple words, and meant them.